Welcome to CDO Magazine's interview series. My name's Clyde Gillard. I am the Director of AI Go-to-Market for HPE in North America. And today I have the pleasure and the privilege of talking with Joe DosSantos, Vice President, Enterprise Data and Analytics at Workday. I'm wondering, is there an example that you could share? I'll call it a success story. Everybody likes to hear like, "Yep, we applied this technology here, and here's the kind of benefit we got." Nothing secret, no sharing financials, but where have you seen AI applied, either at Workday or somewhere else, that you really said to yourself, "This is a great application. This has provided a significant benefit for the customer, and for the company itself." Do you have an example you can cite?
Yeah, so I'm going to focus on my analytical world, right? So at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is how do we start to squeeze the time to value out of getting data to the people, right? So two of our kind of flagships are, if you think about in the sales arena, the thing that ever do is I need to spend more time selling and less time trying to figure out all of this kind of stuff. So we made a sales assistant, a sales companion that effectively allows people to look at their pipeline. So you can say like, tell me about what's in my pipeline. It'll go through the Salesforce system and show them their pipeline and the status. It will tell them about where they are in the sales cycle for those. You can ask some specific questions like, oh, tell me about that account. And it'll tell you about the install base, the competitive pressures. It'll tell you who else is in the account. And then you can start to get some financial information about ARR and ACV trends over time, things. So it just gets that sales rep really smart so they can start to think about their strategy. And then what we've been able to do is then layer on some Anthropic capabilities on top of that, which say, great, given this information, what would you do? And so if you kind of think about what we've been talking about, the first part, you cannot hallucinate. It's got to be right, right? But the second part, you're getting a coach, right? So at the end of the day, if it says, I would highlight this feature of the product over this because our competitors feature that, it may be directionally correct, but you shouldn't go to the bank with it. So for us, that's been a really great story about how we actually start to use that to reduce the time to insight and really help with a coach, as opposed to trying to rely on that person to kind of figure it out how. So that's fairly new, and we're starting to get some great feedback on that. The other thing that we're doing is we're starting to do a pilot where we're accelerating our quarterly close, where, like most organizations, you have a quarterly review and the CEO wants to know, great, what had happened? What can we learn from that? What should we do differently? So it's a kind of a key quarterly, just check in for our quarterly business review. And what we found is, for the most part, it's a pretty formulaic kind of a thing, right? You ask the same questions, you do the same reviews, and so what we were able to do is to create an agent that anticipates all of the questions that are asked as part of that quarterly review, pre-runs all of the queries, and pre-packages all that so it can be assembled for the quarterly business review. Our next step is how do we actually start to turn that into the PowerPoint deck? It's a Google Slides, but turn it into the deck and automate it. So we haven't quite cracked that nut quite yet, but we saw the improvement in productivity. So all of a sudden, instead of trying to figure out how to collect the data, all those people can spend all their time trying to figure out what they're going to recommend in the QBR and what insights they can generate. So we found that that's been, we can reduce that time frame from what takes 2 weeks to something like 2 hours, and it's just tremendous in terms of, again, allowing people to be more human.
Wow. Yeah, there's a technology that we use through our partner NVIDIA where we take public documents like earnings calls reports, and we feed them into the system, and it condenses it into the 10 or 15 salient points, but then uses an animation figure to deliver them. And it's all public documents, so it's all publicly available information. But when you condense a 10K or an annual report down to a 2-minute presentation delivered by an automatron, and obviously it's all specific and direct and accurate information, the audience is pretty impressed. And these are senior executives that know this information, but the way that you can condense it and compile it, you learn something about your own company when you do that. Because when the AI focuses on how does it boil down all that into 2 pages or 2 minutes? It's amazing how your mind looks, thinks, and reacts to it differently. So that's pretty cool.
You said something a little while back. You were asking about data quality, and you might say, what does that have to do with what you just described? And One of my experiences over doing this for a really, really long time is people ask questions that the data can't support. And then you have this human ingenuity in your data team or your BI team to kind of like, well, if I do this and make these 14 different assumptions, then I can get to this outcome. And what we've done is we've kind of hidden the hard work of data from the person asking the question.
Mhm.
And what you just described is get out of my way. I want to see the data. So that kind of direct access to what the data is. This is actually, I think, when we talk about data literacy and things like that, that's what we're talking about. Like, how do you make people look at something and go, I agree, I disagree, and provide that feed loop back? That's, I think, where we're headed. It's trying to get the humans stop blocking executives and leaders from the data, stop trying to interpret it for them, give it to them, and let them kind of become part of this. And I actually think that AI puts a tremendous wind in our sails.
Yeah, it's very powerful. I won't get too personal, but I worked at a company where we sold, software globally, and we had a central CRM system. And when you ever got into a QBR, it's like, well, I ran my numbers in the morning, well, I ran my numbers in the evening, well, your numbers are different than mine. And
Yep.
so they changed it so we all had access to the exact same information at the same time. And it changed the conversation completely with executives and with management from a sales perspective, because now it wasn't breakfast run, lunch run. It's like, this is what we're looking at. Let's talk. It removed a lot of ambiguities and you could focus on the data. So it's very, very powerful.
That's exactly right. And if you think about like that's how Google works, right? Google, if you ask the same question twice, you'll get the same answer, unless it's a time series and then you won't. And everyone kind of gets it, right? So this is what I mean about like, in some respects, the more things change, the more things change, stay the same. Like as a data leader, we have to spend a lot of time trying to be clear about what you mean so that we can have the AIs make your life better. Because if you're pulling different numbers at different time, you're sunk. So we spend a lot of time, for instance, on the good old fashioned things like what is the date effective of this thing? When was it pulled? All this kind of stuff so that, you're reconciling. And in fact, what you can do is you can train the AI to only answer questions a certain way. And it kind of gets all of this. Well, Tom pulled it this way and Jenny pulled it this way out of the mix. So again, these tools are kind of putting wind in our sails and data governance might be cool again.
Yeah, well, it's prompt engineering for people.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so I guess last question is, I look at the clock, maybe we should wrap this up, but I'd love, first of all, I love your metaphors. I love your analogies. This is really fun. Um, and when you look to the future, right, when you say to yourself, what is the world going to look like in 3 to 5 years? I mean, that's kind of where your head has to be at. You have to look over the horizon.
For sure.
Let's assume data gets all figured out. Let's assume, technology goes where it goes. What do you see both, I guess, in terms of sure Workday, because you've got a point of view there, but what's our world look like in 3, 4 years when agentic AI becomes fully adopted? Sometimes you talk to customers and you say, it's a build it and they will come strategy. Wow, this is great technology. Well, is the customer really going to like it? Are they going to use it? Are they going to be forced to use it? But, where do you see us in 3, 4 years? I guess I'm curious, is it Terminator? Is it, I mean, where are we going here?
Well, we spend a lot of time trying to make sure it's not Terminator, to tell you the truth.
Thank you.
At the end of the day, what we're really trying to do is to say, imagine a question, and every company has a different reason for being, a different profit, a way they make money, right? If I could hire 1,000 people tomorrow, what would you do? And the answer to that question is kind of like where the agents will go, right? So if you could hire 1,000, what could you do in software? Well, I could build code faster. I could reach customers faster. I could do all of these different things, right? And so I think that where we're headed is that we should see productivity boosts that dwarf anything that we've seen before. And it's going to actually, hopefully, if we do this right, it will force us to be real thought leaders in our business. We need to be the decision makers. We need to actually act on data. There are too many people right now that are spending their time trying to figure out a dashboard. That's a waste of time.
Mhm.
What to do about the data, now that's valuable. Fundamentally, that's where we want to be, is the humans that are actually taking the input of that which is automated and making decisions and results. That's the opposite of Skynet, which is where the robots just take over. What is human strategy about what a company wants to be? That's fundamentally human. How do we make decisions? How do we collaborate? How do we make a decision about what company we want to acquire, which one we want to divest? How do we make decisions around which geographies we want to go to and which we want to not be in, right? All of these things are fundamentally where we need to spend our time and energy.
That's right. Well, Joe, first of all, I've always enjoyed our conversations, and I always feel like I learn something, and I feel like I need to learn more all at the same time. So it's kind of a cool experience. But let me thank you for joining us today, and also note that there's more interviews and insights available. If you're curious, go to cdomagazine.tech, and you can see what's there. And Joe, thank you very much for your time, and I hope to see you in downtown Boston. I think that's the background you have, so we should
Thanks,
meet. We should
Clyde.
meet there.
I'll buy you a pint at one of the Irish pubs.
I will take you up on that. Thank you.